Yep.
water
Going live.
issues.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we're
Yep.
live.
All right, we are live. uh, this is Penelope Flynn, co-host and moderator, discussions from the other hood on the podcast for Other Sci-Fi. I'm here this evening with Roxanne, Otto, Cranston, Sonia. Waiting for James and Nikki to join us, but I don't know what happened. The link, for some reason, is not working with them. So we'll see if it will fix. For those of you all who are in the Facebook room, communicate with us via chat. We have to log in to StreamYard so we can see who you are. All right, let's get started. And we will start as usual with the weather. And Roxanne, you're top row center. How is your weather?
Cold, butt freezing cold. Yeah, and on top of all of that, it's oh wow, it's gone down to 19. Woohoo!
Ooh,
And on top of all of that, there is a strong wind. Now you want to talk about insult to injury. Needless to say, I have not been outside today, tonight, and may not go out tomorrow, depending on what it looks like. But otherwise, I'm just glad my furnace is working.
yay. How about you, Cranston? How's it going?
It is yesterday it was 66 and it actually felt pleasant, but today it said it made up for that. It's right now it's 44 and overcast and yeah, you don't want to. I finally understand why people wear ski masks.
Yeah, that cold wind hit your face, man. It's not playing
Yeah,
around. It is not playing. So, are you all expecting anything like snow or anything like that this coming week?
we're not expecting snow or even frost, but a lot of the places nearby here have had severe frost and flurries. So
Hmm. Okay, I didn't even ask you, Roxanne. Did you all get any flurries or snow or anything like that?
Yeah, last week we had snow at the beginning of the week and we had snow at the end of the week. However, their predictions on the accumulation were way off. Um, the weather station or whatever said we would get about 2 inches, 1 to 2 inches, and it was more like 3 to 5,
Wow.
which is not a huge amount of snow. I mean, not like Buffalo, New York, but when you have balance problems and gait problems, snow is not your friend.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. And so everybody is not inside warm, toasty. Sonia, how about you? Inside warm and toasty?
Inside warm and toasty, outside 16 degrees, which is
Oh,
down a degree from the high today of 17. It's
we have a
not
Oh,
winner.
snowing.
We have a winner. Ding, ding, ding,
It's
ding,
not
ding.
snowing right now, but we have 3 inches on the ground,
whoa.
and I'm not going outside until it melts on Wednesday.
Yikes.
Because when it gets up to a balmy 44.
Mm, and that's balmy, huh?
mm,
Yep. Bikini
So
weather.
All right.
you got old,
Well,
you
try
got
to
old
check this.
snow on the ground.
Yes, from yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Because it snowed yesterday. It flurried a little today, but not enough to accumulate.
mm.
Hmm. Well, Otto, you get to talk about your lovely weather.
It was lovely. It was a nice cold, not the nasty, bitter cold that Roxanne and Sonia had. It was basically like 29 or 30 degrees and then 32. I could live with that. That's normal cold.
Yeah,
So, and it was nice and sunny, and it's all right. It was okay.
yeah.
It wasn't great. You couldn't walk around in shorts or anything, but this is where it's
So you
supposed to be in
could, just
January.
crazy. That's all. You can do that.
It's the way it's
People,
supposed to be in January, right?
yeah, I guess. But I mean, these,
January is supposed to be a young adult age, not a teenage.
Yeah,
and not
not a
supposed to be
toddler or
16 or
teenager.
19. Yeah, a nice, 30-year-old young adult age.
All right. So we finally got James here. Finally figured out what the problem was. It was the wrong link, and now they have the correct link. So I hope that he and Nikki will both be joining us. But we do have James. How are you doing?
Um, I could be better. Um, I guess it's about I guess it's about 16 degrees outside right about now.
Whoa, you and Sonia fighting, battling for the worst weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a winner too. So
He's the winner. The worst weather. Any rain or anything like that? Or I mean, I guess it's 16. You're not getting rain. What are you getting?
No, it was a sunny day today. Actually, it was a beautiful day. It was a
don't
Wow.
be
beautiful
so
day.
don't be so happy about it, guys. Calm
No,
down.
I'm not. It's not that I'm happy. I'm just kind of befuddled.
Huh.
He's inside. He's warm.
Yep, yep. We're glad for you.
Yeah, that's what counts. I would laugh
Yeah.
too if I was warm like that. So
Yeah, but right now, I mean, right now for me, it's cold. And even though it says we're at 31 degrees, it's chilly. To me, it's chilly down here. Right. But now we're going to get nice and warm and toasty, discussing our favorite, which is Amos and Andy. And I don't know if you know, you just have ever never seen it, got to see it, gotten to some of the links. All of us had our ideas about what Amos and Andy was growing up. I never watched it until I was an adult, probably the last, I don't know, less than 10 years ago that I first watched Amos and Andy. And Otto was watching it. We were saying, that maybe instead of listening to what was said about it, we should have to watch it ourselves and have our own opinions. So, that's what we did. And so I posted that link. So hopefully, if you all had not had an opportunity to go to YouTube, check out some of the episodes and make some determinations as to what it is that we think when we see this. What is our what opinions do we have?
Well, the first thing was I noticed that they were saying in the comments that this was a program that showed black people in a positive light, at least economically. They had jobs, they had real jobs, they had you know they were maintaining themselves. It was sufficient. It was the sort of and if you squint real hard, you can say, yeah, I can see where that was the truth. But at the same time, you had all of the hijinks going on that kind of detracted from that a little bit. So,
Well, I don't know when you talk about the hijinks detract from it. I mean, in what sense? Because I mean, there's a kind of a few different issues regarding hijinks in my mind.
mhm.
We think about the things that they do in order to, you know, make money or get a job or whatever. And I mean, I remember one in particular that I thought was really interesting, where they had a woman and she was pregnant and her husband was in the military. He was trying to get home because she was going into labor, and she was kind of beside herself, and she thought that Andy, I think it was her husband. And so instead of saying, "Get away from me, lady," or Amos, what Joan said, "Well, I'm not your husband," that he just pretended to be her husband so she could get through her labor. And I thought that that was really nice, And all of the guys are, saying, "Oh, they'll be the godfather," this baby and stuff. But that was a nice thing, showing this community and people who were in the military, working people. I thought that was, a really good picture of the community. But on the other hand, we have shows where individuals aren't shown in such a great light. And so, on the one hand, I'd look at it and I say, wow, this is not a good show. But then I have to back up a step and say, yeah, but who's writing it, because they could write, a good show if they wanted to, but the thing in terms of who is it that's writing, who are the gatekeepers who are deciding how it is that Black people interact um, with each other, and then they take that and put it on the screen, regardless of whether they actually know what they're talking about at all. So I don't know if did anybody get an opportunity to watch any of the shows.
No, I watched the shows years ago. I think on a VHS tape,
Mm-hmm.
and again, like I say, we can't look back at
Mm-hmm.
certain things through today's lens, unless it's my friend, Jimmy Stewart. you know, here we go again. But no, see the problem that I had with the show was the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, you never really saw young black people on the show, like young black men and whatnot. And I think, number one, I think the fact that the actors were older was the fact that a lot of them came from black vaudeville.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that, again, with the gatekeepers, they didn't want a person of a certain age because I think people might have felt uncomfortable, And I give them their props, that again, like you said, the show, it had black businessmen and doctors and whatever, and also I give it props. I give props to Spencer Williams. Okay, um, uh, I think Spencer Williams played Kingfish. Um, I give him props because a lot of people don't know that before that TV show, he was a black director and producer of
Mm-hmm.
black films, and one of the films that he produced, directed, and had a part in was Son of Nganji.
I think that was Andy. Is that correct, Otto? I know you know it. The guy who plays Andy.
I think it. I think okay, the one that wore the derby all the time and the cigar,
Andy.
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 Yeah,
Yes.
and that's considered, although it's I've done research and it's debatable, but that's considered the first black science fiction horror movie to be, you know, made, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is what it is, and you also gotta you also gotta consider the source,
Right.
because the original Amos and Andy, I can't do them. I'm sorry, I can't, because number one, they were doing really bad caricatures of black
Mhm.
people. They went blackface, and they were basically making money at our expense.
Right.
The radio version.
Yeah,
Right.
the radio
Yeah.
version.
And the problem is, I find then because of the radio version, the television version, the actors were almost constrained to follow that same type of a format, same individuals, the same, either white men and blackface were acting out, or not blackface, just acting out roles where they pretending to be black people. And in the chat room, we have a user that says it was definitely at a time when neighborhoods weren't integrated. So this was the view of black families that white folks got. And so I
Yeah,
think that that's, a very true thing. And, this is something that when they go to, let's say, minstrel shows and they see people on stage acting, again, they act like it's a documentary and not that it's just entertainment that's supposed to be silly and clown shows and things like that. In their mind, that's how we interact with each other. And I got to say that the one individual in the show that really, gets me is Kingfish character. That you have an individual who is constantly, scheming and trying to get, money, but will basically steal it from his friends. And that's and it's a constant refrain in the show, which I find it to be really kind of despicable, because I don't, and you all can jump in. I mean, this is not like Sergeant Bilko or something like that, but keeping any other shows where white people are portrayed the next time.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the difference. He was a con artist, but when people see Sergeant Bilko, they're like, okay, well, he is what he is, okay. But when people saw Kingfish, they're like, that's it. That's what black people are,
Right,
you
right.
know.
That's what they want to say, that's how we are, but it's not. Or it's like the way you tell a joke or something with your friend, but that's not the way that you conduct yourself when you're conducting business. And it's a this informal way that people may be dealing with their friend, that they act as if this is how black people interact all the time, that they don't have another gear to shift into. But but that's on the one hand these couple of individuals, but we do know they have judges on the show. They have got doctors on the show and nurses and individuals who are policemen, military, things of that ilk. And I guess we started the show. We were talking a little bit at the very beginning, Roxanne and I, before everything kicked off, and we're saying how does it you have good stuff and bad stuff. But when you're mixing the bad stuff, in with the good stuff, people don't say, okay, this silliness over here is not real, and this good stuff over here is real. What they'll say is, the bad stuff must be real because the good stuff is real. You know what I mean? That instead of saying we know this part is a joke and this part is real, that they would rather, I think, believe the part that looks hinky than the part that shows normal lives. And I think, Roxanne, you were saying something earlier you might want to say about the Cosby Show, what the person was saying too.
Oh yeah, well, I was speaking about, or a group of students. I was in college, mixed group, black and white. We were talking about the Cosby Show because that was the hit show at the time, and one of the white students said, "Oh, black people really don't live like that." And the black women in the group just kind of slack jawed stared at her, and I said, well, I do. And the look on her face. But I think that this young woman really thought that the Cosby Show was someone's idea of a black fantasy,
Hmm.
because
Well,
black people don't live like that.
well, did anybody ask her how does she know for a fact that black people don't live like
I
that?
think no, because I think we were all just so stunned that someone would could even think that, much less say that.
Hmm.
Um, we just continued on with the conversation. But that's a good one. I really would have liked, if I had had the presence of mind, I would have asked her that. Yeah.
Well, if black people lived like that, they wouldn't need the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act and all that other stuff. Because
But
then
yeah,
you
yes,
think of black people being
but this isn't the kind of history that white people in school, wherever you learn it, this is not what they've been taught, because
Right.
it doesn't it's without their purview. I mean, why should they learn about the struggles of black people? I mean, and I mean, obviously it's a disservice to all of us, not
Hmm.
just white people, but it's just not something they've ever had to know.
Yeah.
And I think that and of course this is also the reason why certain factions don't want it to be taught in schools.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just something, we're ignorant and we want to remain ignorant.
There's
Period.
well,
different
well,
histories. There's not an American history.
Hmm. Right.
What's more harmful though? What is Good Times more harmful than Amos and Andy?
I, I
No.
I don't know. I mean, well, Nikki just jumped on and because she had some trouble getting in because I sent them the wrong link. So she just jumped in. I know Nikki watches Good Times. I don't know if Nikki had an opportunity to watch any of the Amos and Andy, but I know we talk a lot, about excuse me, about Good Times and how it is that you have this show. And I know Roxanne, you have some really interesting views regarding Good Times that I never really thought about. Um, but like for you, if Nikki could jump in and you could explain your position regarding Good Times, because I'm more negative about Good Times I think you are. But I thought you had a really good perspective on it
Can you refresh my memory? What did I
because
say?
you were saying that it was a whole family. You know.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. Prior to that, if there was anything prior to that, Black families on TV were broken in some way. Um, Generally, they didn't say divorce, but usually she was widowed, because it clearly wasn't about a Black man. I mean, so she was widowed or something like that, but she's raising a kid on her own. There's no man in her life, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And Good Times, they had an intact family. And I guess, really, that's the only good thing I can say about Good Times is that we had an intact family. Now, of course, the fact that they were poor and they were living in the projects, I mean, that's just, yeah, that's what we expect,
Hmm.
from that's what we expect for, white producers with a Black show to show white audiences.
Hmm.
But the fact that they were intact, I think was important, even if it wasn't, even if it wasn't something that was played up, just to see a poor Black family that was intact,
Yeah.
you know, because everybody expects that, daddy doesn't come around until after welfare check comes, or who is it, the people who check on you to see if you got a
Yeah.
man with you,
They're just
right? And that's the other thing, they were poor, but they weren't on welfare.
But that's the other thing, like with Claudine, the whole thing with the
Yes.
children there, with the no father figure, and until of course the end, the whole point of getting married. In that particular show, and I mean, we went at one point. I think it was very interesting because James I think, was saying how it was that, and I was so shocked when he was saying how uh, Good Times is actually Claudine. It is. If you
Yeah.
look at Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, that character, the older son, he is wearing exactly the same clothes that JJ wears in Good Times.
Yeah,
So,
and see the thing about it though is that again, we as a black race, black diaspora, were not monolithic. Okay, growing up in Bronx River houses, my family was middle class, but then again, we had families that were poor.
mhm,
Okay, but that was just part of it. Just like years later, when I one of the first jobs I had was as a messenger. I They used to send me to deliver packages and go to high rises on the Upper East Side, and it would be black families.
mhm,
Okay, in fact, one building that I used to go to on a regular, one of the tenants, his name was Llewellyn, and even though he lived in New York, he was the owner of was it Pepsi? I think Coca Cola or Pepsi Philadelphia.
mm,
Okay, and actually, at one time in the early '70s, you did have black business people that had what they called back then French cleaners for dry cleaning. You know what I'm saying? So, but see, the problem is all of that I'm talking about with Llewellyn and the cleaners and all of that. When you get some white, some people in
mhm,
this country, either they don't want to watch that, acknowledge that. Some I don't know what it is. They refuse to. They want to acknowledge the good time characters, and
Hmm.
Well, you did.
it got worse because it went from good times to basically the Jimmy Walker Comedy Hour.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't have any of those people, black business people, on Good Times. You had those black business people, well spoken,
Hmm.
black judges. People who didn't live, who lived in their own either houses or brownstones. You didn't have anything like that on Good Times. So to
Yeah.
me, a Good Times did more damage than Amos and Andy did.
Well, I would agree and disagree because again, to me, Amos and Andy, and again, I give Spencer Williams his props. See, the problem with Amos and Andy is that show was basically made for people of a certain demographic
Hmm.
to watch and laugh and feel safe.
Hmm.
Okay. Again, the episodes that I've seen, I don't recall like a young black character on there or anything like that, or put it this way, a black character with a bit of attitude.
Yeah, there were a bunch of them. I think you gotta revisit the show. I think the problem with Amos and Andy is basically its title.
Hmm.
No,
That
I don't.
people
I
hear
don't
Amos and Andy
yeah,
and they think
yeah.
all the way
Well,
back to that. Hey, Amos,
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
see, here's the thing. If we had people like Nat King Cole having his own TV show, okay, and you had black actors that were up and coming in the movie industry, at that point in time, what was Amos and Andy? The late 50s,
Early 50s.
early 50s. You know why? Why? And the only reason, the answer to that is because it was safe.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was
it's
safe.
funny. It was just as
Yeah.
it's just as
Not,
it looked. If you look at it, it looked just like the sitcoms of that era, which are like the
yeah.
Honeymooners, I
Hmm.
Love Lucy.
Oh,
It's the same.
yeah. I would even say that. And don't get me wrong, there was episodes that made me laugh, but I would even say it had the same feel and the same way it was filmed, like the Abbott and Costello show.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it had that same feel. Maybe
I can see that.
yeah, maybe the same producers, the same people that made Abbott Costello did that show, you know,
You
and
always have the Bud, you know, character chick always trying to get
right,
Scheme. I try to
over.
get rich.
Yeah, I try to get over on him. Stealing from him. What is the one thing?
Ed Norton,
Yeah.
Jackie Gleason, Ed Norton
Right.
get rich. Lucy trying her antics.
yeah,
To do whatever. This basic formula sitcom. The problem is that it it suffered from the name. It had in its DNA the name.
That tie-in.
If it was called Harlem Brownstones or Harlem Streets or something like that, I don't think people would found it as objectionable.
Well, because they're tied to those characters. They have this character, the Andy, supposed to be shiftless and lazy. I mean, I don't know how many times everybody's used that word shiftless, but all the time I think shiftless, I always see it used, in tandem with people, of a certain hue, you know, and this is how, these people are described. I think the character Kingfish may not have been from the original radio show, but this character is so offensive. And then was it Algonquin? What's his name? The attorney
Algonquin, yeah. Algonquin Calhoun Esquire.
Calhoun. Calhoun, yeah. That
brother
this
Nate.
guy is supposed to be an attorney, at least to some point. And basically, when people see, okay, this is what this shystery, kind of black lawyers like, or not even shystery, ignorant, you know.
But yeah, but
Um,
you gotta juxtapose that to the black
the
judge who spoke
judges and
like
the
normally
yeah,
and told him, "I just barred your ass. You what are you
yeah,
doing back in
good
here?"
figure,
You
yeah, he
know.
just yeah. But I think the issue is people again, like that issue of comfort, that black people are buffoonish, and we never have to worry about them taking a job because see, this is what they're like, and this is what they're like. So why are they asking for affirmative action or anything like that? Because you get in this job, they wouldn't be able to manage it anyhow, because this is how they are.
Yeah,
But you look at but
Hmm.
yeah,
but you look at the honeymooners, and Ed Norton and Jackie and Bob Crandon are buffoonish.
Yeah, but again, they look at themselves and think, "Oh, that's silly Ralph and Ed and tee hee hee ha ha ha." But they don't say they see themselves reflected in that. When they see Kingfish and Andy and Calhoun, all acting crazy, they think that, well, that's how all of us are. In fact, even though there are doctors and police officers and nurses and others, within the show who are professionals or middle class, who are just working people, they think they look at those people and they think that reflects all of us, because the other people are background individuals who aren't really the stars of the show. They are just, something back there, like even as Roxanne was saying about the Cosby Show, that's the fantasy. Those people, doing regular things. So that's the fantasy. That Kingfish, Calhoun, and Andy, that is our true reality. Sapphire is our reality. Sapphire's mom is our reality. You know, the Knights of the Mystic Lodge, that is our reality. That we aren't those other people.
Well,
yeah,
in
It's-
taking it,
I
Hmm?
was going to say it sounds like a lack of empathy because they never experienced. They can't put themselves in the shoe and extend that critical thought.
Yeah.
They've never seen. The audiences back then in CBS never saw a black lawyer, never saw black judges.
Mhm.
Can't really empathize and go, oh, other they have for people in those professions too,
Mhm.
where we're always expected to be walk in other people's shoes
Right.
and to understand.
Right. And that's
well,
exactly it.
it's sort of like Red Fox had a joke about he had to go out and buy a switchblade knife because he had read in Time magazine that all black people carried switchblade knives, and he said for 42 years he carried an ice pick, but he had to go out and get a switchblade because he read it in read that's what you're supposed to have. But
Right.
in sort of a continuum, if you look at the lyrics to the song, theme song from Good Times, it started out keeping our heads above water, making a
Hmm.
way if we can. And then the next of it is just it's just a litany of every bad thing that could happen.
Hmm.
Temporary layoffs, easy credit ripoffs, hustling and
Good
striving,
time.
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then they end it by saying, ain't not aren't, but ain't we lucky we have them good times? Like, yeah, we
Good
know we're
time.
living in this bad situation, but hey, that's our life, and so
Mhm.
that's it.
well, that
Well, wait a minute ago, Cranston,
that
can't you?
that that I think is the essence of that part of that song. So I think it's the essence of black people, that even though we go through hard times, we're still resilient. We still persevere. The
Hmm.
And
struggle
can't and,
continues.
Okay, but
and can't the
problem
No
song
with
fear.
go ahead.
can't the song
Go
be sarcastic? Can black people be
I mean,
sarcastic?
well, maybe I think,
Can't
and
this?
if it was sarcastic, that would be wonderful. But again, we talk about this all the time. Is I shot the clerk, right? And my cousin Vinny, where the court reporter takes down, with this recording they have, and he says to them when they're questioning him during the interview, say, so that when you went in and you shot the clerk, he says, I shot the clerk. I shot the clerk. But when they go to trial and they read it off, I shot the clerk. I shot the clerk. The words are exactly the same, but the way they are conveyed is very different, the meaning that comes with it. And I think that that's the issue here. It's like, yes, this may be, exactly the same, but the people who are watching don't don't append the same meaning. We can't be sarcastic. We tell a joke, we're sarcastic, and that doesn't happen. It's no, you can't be sarcastic. Everything that comes out of your mouth is, the not so much of the truth, but what was that I saw? What was the show? What is it? Soldier Story. When someone had said something that was snarky or whatever, or they were thinking of how this murder could have been committed. Black people aren't that clever, right? Negroes aren't that clever. But, so everything you say has to be, on the nose because you're not clever enough to be sarcastic. You're not clever enough to be snarky. So, yeah, maybe the person who wrote that song thought that they were being snarky and thought that they were being clever, sarcastic, funny, but that machine, right? The gatekeepers that put that song out there, they think that that's, you all, the happy Negroes, as I said, sitting around the shack singing. That's what they think. So
Well,
that,
Because if we
well,
didn't have it, we'd be the Jeffersons.
yeah,
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, Good Times was the contrast to the Jeffersons.
yeah, and they were not being they were being literal. It was like documentary filmmaking when they did the song for Good Time.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
I
that's
think also, I agree, Sonia, that the Jeffersons were, the mirror opposite of Good Times. But I also wonder if, think of the eras when Good Times was popular and then the Jeffersons. I mean, I think it was like maybe 10 years, but I think in that period, there was a shift in the perceptions of white people of what of bleh, the perceptions of white people as to what black people are or can be. Let's put it that way. I
mm,
mean, because let's face it, George Jefferson was a caricature,
right.
but he was also a caricature living on the Upper East Side. I mean, he was a successful businessman.
Well,
Um,
you know what? What that thing? I don't know the line to me for George Jefferson comes to the last poets. You know, you
mhm.
can take people out of the country, but you can't take the country out of you know who. So that line,
Right,
Well,
right.
well, the thing
But
is, though, is that Joe Jefferson is living this high Upper East Side life,
hmm
and people, I've never heard people say, "Well, that's a fantasy or something," but they think the Cosby Show is a fantasy. It's a just, isn't that isn't that weird?
it's weird. It's not weird. It's because again, like Roxanne said, George Jefferson is a caricature. So because he is a caricature and he's this loud man with this little man's complex, running around, being loud and wrong, that is just Kingfish 2.0. You know, Cosby was soft spoken guy, kind of relaxed, easygoing. Wife, he's a professional. He's a doctor. His wife is an attorney. Kids, well behaved, having
well,
just
I think it. I mean, the moniker they slapped on him, America's Dad, just kind of sums it up.
right. And so that concept that he is just a regular normal dad, and this is not what television moguls, media industry heads, and gatekeepers have been feeding people up to that point.
Right.
This is not what a black family looks like, and people, even black people, would say, "Oh, that's not real." So why is that not real? I mean, you may say that's not your experience, but you can't say that no one lives that way. Not one black person in the United States lives that way.
Exactly.
You know, and that's the thing that they've gotten even us to the point where we are agreeing that, oh yeah, this is an impossible life for black people when it just wasn't. In fact, I remember after Different World came on, that the spinoff of the Cosby Show, that college admission for Black students went up because, especially at HBCUs, wait a minute, you mean there's a place and we can go there and have these experiences and that's a thing, you know? But unless you tell people that that thing exists, and media can sometimes do that, they don't know, right?
Agreed.
And I
or
think,
It's
hmm
just generational. I mean, at the college that it's in the in different world, there were generational black people that went to that college. So it's like my mother went here, and my dad, my grandfather. There, I think, a lot of the writers and a lot of TV shows would show, well, I'm the first of my family to go to college, kind of thing. That's a narrative that's easy and, like James said, comfortable for them to believe, right?
right, right. And in this thing, you have these children who are legacy. What is it? Denise goes, he is at least a three-generation legacy going to Hillman. So, this was not, just, you know, people in our family, don't get to go to college. No, at least three generations have been to college already. And I think that concept of people being the first person to ever go to college, this is something also they wanted to say, like every black person, every black family, every generation, no matter how recent, somehow they're saying they're the first black person, to go to college, first
I'm the
person to
first
go to
person
college.
in my yeah, first person in my family to go to college, and it's not I'm not demeaning that or belittling that, but it's a stereotype for a lot of people who write these stories who aren't us, right? They're not
Right.
us, and they're easier to somehow easier to believe, but we won't. You have black people not believing the Cosby Show,
hmm
but it's easy for them to believe The Wire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, well, again, this goes back to what I said uh, many podcasts ago. When it comes down to this, again, we're not monolithic. You have different types of black people here, out
hmm
here. You know, the diaspora. Okay. The problem is the powers that be. They focus on just one demographic
hmm
of the black community, and if they see that money could be made, that's who they're going to focus on. So that's why you have shows like The Wire. That's why you had shows back then like Good Time. I remember the time, what was it? JJ was supposed to get married.
hmm
Um the night that episode aired, I think it was a two-part episode. Outside my neighborhood, it was deserted because everybody was upstairs watching that episode. I kid you not.
It's like
It
it was
was,
their version of Who Shot JR or something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was must see TV. It was a television moment, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing with Amos and Andy. You had some black people that enjoyed it for what it is, and then you had some black people that were annoyed because being the early 50s, that's when civil rights started really to take off.
hmm
Because right after World War II, certain people in this country wanted us to go back to the way we were. And this has happened: the Civil War, the Spanish American War, World War One, World War One with the what was it, the Red Summer,
hmm
1919.
Right.
World War Two, they wanted us to go back to how we were, to the point where some black soldier was pulled off a bus down south and had his eyes gouged out.
Good.
Okay, yeah, it was so horrific that even Orson Welles spoke on it on his radio show. You know, but then things started to change, and I guess some black folks felt that, okay, Amos and Andy is good to go. You know, they show positive people, but then there were negative people,
Mhm.
stereotypes on the show to the point where the NAACP kind of stepped in. You know,
But the
and
only stereotype on the show was Kingfish.
right,
He spoke in a broad
Yeah.
Southern dialect. He's straight out of Song of the South.
yeah,
Hmm.
Everybody else in that show pretty much, you know, speaking like we speaking right now on this show.
hmm
Right.
but see,
Right.
And
here's the thing though. Kingfish was like, you ever get a pebble and you drop it in water and it ripples. You know,
Yep.
the ripples wide and far. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah, white people, you know, black people are watching the show and they love the fact that you know you have black upstanding citizens, doctors, lawyers, whatever. And again, I liked it because every time I watched it, it reminded me of I got it got to be the same people that did the Abbott and Costello show,
Mhm.
and
yeah,
maybe
it could be, but it also I think Charles Barton, who did a lot of the Bowery Boys films and
ah
comedies. And then
ah
look at the show, the way the format is. It
right
just reminds me of a lot of the Honeymooners and I Love Lucy stuff. And
yeah
if you
yeah I Love
once again, I
Lucy.
think if you
I
change the
would
name,
yeah
yeah, because
I would even throw in it gives it has the same feel the same feel of that show. Remember My Little Margie?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, My Little Margie. It had it seemed like it was filmed the same way, you know. But yeah, and you know it's good that it was a discussion about it back then, and you know it's good that it was a discussion about good times and the wire because it's at the end of the day it's still our community, our people.
but
Mhm.
I think that NAACP was, looking backward, I think is of course 2020, but I think they were wrong. If they wanted to reform the show, they should have just said, you know what, it's okay, show, get rid of that Kingfish character, and you're good to go.
But I think that might have been what they said. But like, I think again, what it was that I think James, Vivian, Roxanne, Sonia was saying one or more of them was saying the issue of comfort, that they probably get rid of every other character on that show, but not that one, because that's the character that makes that wide demographic that they are targeting feel good and safe and comfortable, where black people are a joke, that they can be laughed at. That's what they want. They didn't want the show, showing that these people have their own communities where, people are doing well.
Yeah,
That.
but Penelope, look at it this way. Of course, I may be wrong, but you look at where Kingfish's family stayed or where they lived.
Mhm.
It's way better than when Ralph Crandon and the Nortons and Norton family lived. They lived in
Yeah,
crap.
yeah,
They
and
lived
and
in
everyone is renting. Everyone is renting.
Well, I think that's because Ralph Crandon was cheap. Because if I'm not mistaken, like 1978, they did a honeymoon special, and it's like, oh my God, you know, Jackie Gleason got gray hair and a mustache, and they living in the same same
yeah.
apartment. You know,
It's just
he
Well,
was
you
just
know,
no
hey,
cheap.
some
nobody
people stay in those
the
same
people,
units for 20, 30 years.
Well, you
but
know,
Rent control.
I read something. I read an article. I mean, it was a real article about Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners.
Hmm.
And Jackie Gleason's Alice and Ralph's apartment looked the way it did because Jackie Gleason wanted it that way because that's where he grew up, in
Hmm.
an
Ah,
apartment like that with nothing in it.
Hmm.
And I remember one show. I don't know if it was more than one, but I remember one honeymooner show where they had a shot of Ed Norton's apartment.
oh yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah.
was, I mean, the furniture, very comfortable. I mean, stark contrast.
Hmm.
Hmm
So and yeah, in New York, I mean, I when I was just out of college, I was looking for a place to live. Who isn't? And this woman on Park Avenue was renting out a room in her apartment with its own bath, so on and so forth. And this woman had been living in this apartment. I mean, she was quite elderly and nearly bedridden. She'd been living in this apartment for 45 years.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Rent
people
control,
come
yeah,
forward.
rent control.
And
It's
with
rent
rent
control.
control, yeah, she was paying next to nothing for
Hmm.
this apartment on Park Avenue.
It's
Yeah,
like $2.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah,
She says, I'm not going anywhere.
yeah. But
that's
you
right.
don't find any places that look like that on the Amos and Andy show. No, not one character lives in a place that's decrepit or as bummy looking as the places you see on the honeymooners.
Yeah.
Oh, and a quick rest in peace to Joyce Randolph because she passed away recently.
Oh.
Yes, she was the
Trixie.
last.
Trixie, yeah.
Trixie.
But we also have to look at where the shows came from. Amos and Andy came from radio, so they followed that format.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Good Times came from Maud, so that was two steps removed from all my on All in the Family, where um the Jeffersons came directly from. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had a whole brand new comedy format for the Cosby Show. So everybody's following the formula of where they came from,
Mm-hmm.
to pardon from different world. Um, so and comedy in 1 year, comedy changed from Good Times to the Jeffersons because of where it came from. All in the Family had matured a little bit more, so that's why the Jeffersons was a little bit more refined in behavior and things like that.
Well,
Well,
I mean, I liked All in the Family because I thought it
I
was
like All in the
so,
Family.
yeah,
They talked about serious subjects, but
yeah.
the Jeffersons and even Good Times spinoff that was a joke. I
Yeah,
mean,
the Good Times
you know,
spun off on Maud though, and because of how they handled that with Maud, because Florida was Maud's maid in New
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
York, and then she moved to Chicago, where Jeffersons were already on an equal plane with the Bunkers.
and Maud wasn't rich by any standard.
Mm-mm.
She did. But they try to get the illusion that just because you're white and live in the suburbs, that somehow you're rich.
Yeah,
That illusion that's a fantasy. You talk
yeah.
about fantasy. So much so you can afford a maid and all that. Get out of here with that.
Mm-hmm.
And how
Well,
is
you got to
Florida
clean.
getting out there? How is Florida getting out of there from? I guess she in Maud she lives uh, a suburb in New York City, so I would
Yeah,
presume Maud lives in the city. How is Florida getting out there to her place? A car?
no idea. I don't know, maybe. Well, remember her husband, and although John Amos plays her husband in Maud, John Amos is Henry, and he's a firefighter.
Yeah,
He's
you know
not.
that black firefighter would say. Know what he would say?
Well,
My wife ain't being no maid in no white person's house. That's what he would say.
yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I thought Good Times took place in Chicago.
It
It
did.
does.
Yeah,
They
The
moved to
yeah,
Florida Evans
Chicago.
is in New
Okay.
York,
yeah.
and she worked for
Yeah, Maud
Maud.
is in New York.
And
So
yeah,
what
and with
happened
Florida,
is that
mhm.
Henry got in the car in Florida and got his kids, and he kept driving one day and kept going all the way to Chicago, and then he changed his name, and then they lost
Okay,
money and
that's last
education.
show.
That
This
that was last week.
degrees of occupation was last week's show. Yes, yeah, uh, yeah. He was same guy, but now he's James. To the Florida, who somehow is going through all this hard stuff, and who at no point says, it's kind of rough. I get on the phone and call my old employer Maud and see if she can hook us up. Or something
No, no,
that
not at
bad.
all. And Maud took on serious issues like I think somebody was saying that the issue of abortion
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
and all those serious issues. You didn't have that in Good Times. I mean, there was one show
And
that I
but
saw.
Good Times, they had a lot of what those black victimization trauma issues. That's what they had in Good Times. Oh no, so and so the
The only
alcoholic. Oh, so and so robbed a bank and he's gonna go to jail. Oh, you say everything was that kind of an issue.
Yeah,
the
bank
only Good
robbers like
Times
bank robbers.
show I saw with that actually tackled a real issue
Mm.
was and I mean not just a black issue, a universal issue was alcoholism. That was the only one.
Maud's husband.
Whose husband?
Walter,
Maud's.
Oh,
Wal-
yeah. But
Walter's.
this was the Good Times. It was a dinner. The daughter was late, not Florida's daughter, but the other girl was late,
Is
and
Debbie Allen? Was that the Debbie
That
Allen episode?
I don't know.
I don't
I
know,
think it was the
but
penny.
I don't know. And and basically, whatever that girl's name was, Florida's daughter's like she's drunk, and her father says, "Well, thank goodness it's not drugs." And then Florida's daughter turns on him and says, "Alcohol is a drug,"
Mm. Yeah.
and and she just goes off on this guy
Mm-hmm.
about alcoholism. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the only one I ever saw.
Yeah.
I don't claim to have seen them all, but that was the only one I ever saw that talked about
But
an
that was the
issue.
only one I ever saw that talked about an issue.
Well, Penelope and I saw one last week where they were talking about healthcare.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Penelope, you
Yeah, and
remember
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah.
I think with Debbie Allen, that was the marriage episode,
Right.
and she was strung out on heroin or something like that.
Yeah.
The
So
marriage.
it's some weird echo. So it's some weird echo. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this what they call ghosts in the machine?
Yes.
Is this what they
call ghosts in the machine? Yes. Wow.
Hello, no, no.
Hello, hello. You said it twice. You're so nice. You said it twice.
Wow.
Hello, no, no.
Hello, hello. You said it twice. You're so nice. You said it twice.
What is that? What is that?
Stop playing around, Penelope.
I am Beelzebub.
Stop playing around, Penelope. She's trying to mixtape.
It's not me.
I am Beelzebub, bub. I am Beelzebub, bub.
Oh, stop. Stop. You scare people.
Who
Just
has
stop.
on two microphones?
Oh, stop.
Just then, it's like
Stop. You
someone
scare people.
has on two microphones. Just then, it's like someone is like then, I just heard it stop. Like then, I just heard it stop. It sounds like
Okay.
afraid to say anything.
I'll test it. 1, 2, 3.
I'm so afraid to say anything. Okay, that sounds like it stopped. Did y'all hear it?
Yeah.
What was that?
I have no idea. James doing crazy stuff. That's what I'm
No,
saying.
no, no. That was probably Spring Hill Jack driving from London to Wales. I don't know.
That was very strange. Very strange.
What?
All right. Well, guys, we're getting down to the wire here, it seems. So I just want to, maybe it's Cranston. He's coming back now. But I want to ask, did anybody, I sent that link, did anyone watch any of the shows today?
I did.
No? Yeah? Yeah, of course I
I
did.
did.
But did any of y'all watch them? And if you did not watch them, are you inclined to try to watch some of them and see what, how they stack up,
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have a problem watching the shows again. Again, we can't. What's done is done. We can't. I know, Otto, you hate when I say it, but we can't look at things. But this time, you should agree. We can't look at things from today's lens.
Well, I agree and I disagree with you because I I disagree with the NAACP stance on the show. I think it was I think it was misplaced. I really don't think it's a minstrel show. I think Good Times is more of a minstrel show than Amos and Andy is or
What the
was.
but I agree that with the NAACP, I think that it was harmful. And I mean, there are good parts of it, but unfortunately, when you have good parts mixed in with something like that, it just makes the bad stuff seem more true, as if it's more true than not. And I'm pretty certain NAACP probably said you need to change this character, and they probably said nope, we're not doing that because this is the way that we want this show to be viewed, to be consumed. We want people to think that there are people out there who are like that and that, they can't get jobs or won't get jobs because it promotes that lazy, shiftless Negro um, uh, meme that they are constantly, using to justify keeping black people out of certain jobs, positions, housing, etc. So no, they're not going to get rid of that guy, especially, we consider like the quote that I posted. What is it? Harold Ross, who was the um, founder and editor of the New Yorker, and say his quote: "Coons are either funny or dangerous," right? And you have people who are in charge of this industry that they believe that, then that's how they are going to portray us, funny or dangerous. You know?
Well, I remember this interview they did with the actors from Amos and Andy, uh, the wife, um, and Kingfish, and several other actors. And what they said was, we we don't know what the big deal is. We see this as another acting job. People need to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just just something that somebody wrote and we're performing it. And if you
Mm-hmm.
cancel the show, we won't have jobs. So putting us out of work, what is
Mm-hmm.
that going to do for the black community? So that's the way a lot of the actors on the show looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you get into issues like this, it's always a double-edged sword.
Right.
No, I don't want black people to be portrayed as buffoons, but if the people doing the acting don't have a job, you know, what do
Yeah.
you do? I mean, who is the are the actors supposed to suffer because of image? The image of the community at large?
Well, I mean, from
Because
my
of one
perspective,
guy.
yes. From my
Yeah,
perspective,
because
yes.
of one guy who's written as a buffoon. Yeah, I mean, he's been in New York like he's he's supposed to be from Marietta, Georgia, and he
Mm-hmm.
and he migrated to New York, and he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have been there for like I don't know 30 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he speaks like the guy from Song of the South. Oh,
Yeah.
hey there, what are you doing there? Let me tell
Yeah.
you something.
And all that is just white minstrelsy emasculating as blackness, and that's why I don't like it. You know,
But he's the only. But 99% of the show, 90. I guess so. I don't know.
no, 99% of
So,
the show, he is there. He figures prominently in almost every episode. You
And
know,
and the guy who
and
plays
and the issue is this: not just that he's there and he figures prominently, but all the stuff he does, all the things he fails to do. He is never taken to task and not made truly accountable. Yes, the hijinks and you do this and do that, and then you know he's thwarted in the end, but not in the basic sense of where someone says you need to stop doing this. You need to quit. It's
and
destructive to our community. Nobody
the guy
says that.
the actor who plays Algonquin Calhoun Esquire. He did the voice for the crows in Dumbo, and he did a
Mhm.
lot of those kind of I guess Sambo, is that the right word?
Well, not really.
Voices
Yeah.
for Disney. Some of those,
Mhm.
I guess, minstrelly voices
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Disney cartoon characters. I don't know I got the actor's name, but he was the lawyer in Amos and Andy. He did a lot of the stereotypical black voices that
Mhm.
Disney used for crows and various other
Mhm.
pickaninny type characters.
Well, you know what's kind of sad about this whole thing is that here you have people back then that were creative,
Mhm.
that wanted to act. You know, they had dreams of becoming stars, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, in order to put bread on the table, they had to take these parts. You know, that's what I think is sad about it. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
So we watch, we document, and when we get control of the shows, we do better.
there you go.
No, we do what Tyler Perry did and make it even worse than
Mhm.
ever's been before.
Yeah.
I prefer Byron Allen, but
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
and see that's again that's the debate within our community. Again, we're not monolithic.
Right.
Some people some people like the stuff that God bless them. They
But
like.
no, I mean the wish of saying, when we get a control of these, we're gonna do something totally different and just like it, even
Right.
worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, again, we're not monolithic. We have one part of the diaspora that likes that stuff that Tyler Perry does, and
and
we have,
he aims
yeah,
towards his demographic
there you
Mhm.
go.
to
There you
sell the
go,
show.
Sonia.
You gotta find
Yeah,
a way to sell the show.
And
yeah,
Give
isn't
the
that how
people
he
what
made
they
his
want.
steak?
You
Mhm.
got to give the people what they want,
Even
right?
if it's poison, give them poison.
yeah.
They
But
want poison.
we need
It's
to be
free.
Steve Jobs and give the people what they don't know they need yet.
Yeah.
Like a
Steve
big
Jobs did.
6'3" man in a dress pretending to be a black woman.
Yes. There you go. Because we really needed that.
Yeah. Trust me, I cringe at some of that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
And like a
I,
series, Medea's Halloween, Medea's Christmas, Medea's
Mhm.
Easter,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Medea's summertime vacation.
Mhm.
But
Well, like I said, we're coming up on the ending of the show. Did anybody want to give their own reflections? I mean, it would start, with Sonia. Anything that you want to reflect on with this?
I just said it. We watch, we document, so that we remember cannot make people forget what happened before, and try to do better. Get control, because we have to show that we're not like James keeps saying, we're not monolithic.
Right.
I'm not the same as James, not the same as Roxanne. My experiences are completely different from everyone else's, and we need to show something. I just heard it was an Irish comedian that says we need to show the whole that America's not a melting pot. We're a charcuterie board
Mm,
with lots of different stuff all on the available
mm,
for people, and perhaps not add so many crackers so it
mm.
won't get worse.
How about you, Cranston?
Yeah, well, there was a commentary that Tommy Davidson had done on the DVD release of Bamboozle, which sort of covered some of those issues. And Davidson was saying that that he first thought that Amos and Andy was just like trash TV or something, but then he
Mm-hmm.
watched it and said that some of those things they did were quite sophisticated
Yeah.
and was not that hard to do. So it wasn't that these people were trying to just like get a paycheck necessarily, or did something. They probably did the best they could with the material they had. But if you look at some of the things that happened during that whole spate of That's My Mama and all those other shows that came up at that time, that it's not that big. It's not that significant. It's not a sea change
Mhm,
difference. It's technologically more proficient, but
mhm,
content wise, it wasn't, So they're not the best example we've ever had, but they certainly aren't the worst.
mhm. Okay. Okay, how about you, Otto?
Well, I agree in a way of what Cranston said. You know that I my stance is that watch the show, watch all, Amos and Andy.
Mhm,
If don't be scared off by his title. And the comedies and sitcoms that came later on in the 70s and 80s and 90s, they were more hurtful to black imagery than Amos and Andy ever was, in my opinion.
mhm. Right. James?
Uh, it's it's a part of history. You know, it's a part of history. It has good and bad to it. Really, when it comes to millennials and Generation Z, and maybe a certain amount of Y and X generations, they really don't care. They really don't care. These generations that I have just named don't even know the show exists.
Mm,
You know, but listen, it's it's a historical show. It has its faults, just like
Has
that's my mama.
its faults, just
yeah.
like
I,
that's my mama.
You
yeah.
know,
I,
so it is what
You
it
know,
is.
so it is what it is.
I
Is
don't
that
know.
my clone again?
Is that my
Yeah,
clone again? Yeah.
a lot
A lot
faster this
faster
time.
this time.
Up to
That's just smarty.
That's so smarty.
All right, Roxanne, did you
All
want
right,
to
Roxanne, did you want
anything?
to think?
Oh, well,
Oh well,
all I want to
all I
say, I
want to
guess,
say, I
is
guess, is
Oh my God.
oh my god.
despite the
Despite the horror
historical record
historical
and so
record and
on,
so on,
I just
I
think
just
it's
think it's
very
very
interesting that
interesting that
after Good
after
Times and after so many of these shows, BET was founded. I'm
Mm,
not saying BET is any better, but I watched it and I was like, oh God, no.
mm-hmm,
But
a good
a I think
a I
we
think
finally had
we finally
a
had
place,
a
by
play
us for
by us for us.
whether it was good or
Whether it
not.
was good or not, that
That's not the
that's not the
consideration.
consideration.
But
But
a
a
television
television
station
station
that
that
produced
produced
shows
shows
that
that
were
were a reflection,
a real
a real
reflection
reflection
of Black
of
people's
Black
lives
people's
in
lives in
this
this
country.
country.
mm-hmm. There you go.
You
Well,
go, well,
we're down
but
to it.
that's
Thank
true.
you
We
all
thank
for
you all
joining us.
for joining us this evening.
And I'm
And I'm
hoping that
hoping
everyone
that
in the
everyone in
audience
the audience
will look
will
at
look
the
at
link
the link
with the
with
Amos
the
and Andy
Amos and
show.
Andy
Let's
show.
take a look at
Take a
them
look at them
and maybe,
and maybe,
comment.
comment.
Let us know
Let us
what you
know
thought
what you
about
thought
it.
about it.
Whether you think we're
Whether you
on
think we're
base,
on
whether you're
base,
way
whether you're
off
way
base.
off base.
All right.
Right?
Um, any
Any
special
special
announcements,
announcements?
birthdays,
Birthdays,
other
other
celebrations?
celebrations?
All right.
All right.
Sonia, you're
Sonia,
muted.
I want to say
I'm gonna
happy
say happy
birthday to my
birthday to my
niece,
niece,
Sarani
Sarani
Jane.
Jane.
Her
Her
birthday is
birthday is
next
next
Friday, I think.
Friday, I think.
All right.
All right.
If she
If
she
she
should be
should be
listening to us
listening to us
here in the
here in the
States if
States
she's
if
not
she's
in
not in
Japan.
Japan.
Right.
Right.
All right.
All right,
Well,
well,
we'll be back
we'll be
in the
back in the
future, the other
future,
hood.
other
Have
good. Have
a
a
productive next
productive
week
next
and a
and a
wonderful
wonderful
weekend.
weekend.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care of
Take care
yourself,
of
y'all.
yourself, y'all.
All right, good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
I consider
I
Good
consider
myself
night.
myself
the
the
luckiest
luckiest
man
man